Hello again, YouTubers, on with SpongeBob 101 back here again on the SpongeBob channel. Today we are reviewing SpongeBob episode 67, Enemy-in-Law, and Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy number 6, the motion picture. The synopsis states, SpongeBob sets out to make his own Mermaid Man movie using the original actors, fresh from the retirement home. Also, Mr. Krabs is horrified to learn Plankton is dating his mother. Let's dive right in. I'm gonna be straightforward in regards to my thoughts on Enemy-in-Law. It sucks. Usually older SpongeBob episodes, including those in season 4, have a positive message that might be useful to kids and adults alike. And in this episode, Plankton ditches his legitimate computer wife in favor of Mrs. Krabs of all people. And once he realizes that she too has access to the Krabby Patty formula, he tries to make a move and proposes to her. This is so wrong on so many levels. And while there are a few bright spots like wife being an acronym, SpongeBob randomly inserting himself into the episode, and Krabs standing up like a man, this episode focuses mainly and unsurprisingly on Plankton pursuing Mrs. Krabs, first using his brand new robot and then in person. Krabs doesn't take it lying down, immediately becoming suspicious of Plankton, and what do you know? By the end of the episode, it turns out Mrs. Krabs doesn't want to marry Plankton after all, presumably because she's dating Plankton's robot. It's kind of strange, and Plankton does get some of his just desserts by Mrs. Krabs punching him out of the Krusty Krab after Plankton demands the Krabby Patty formula from him, and he reactivates Karen, who also zaps him as punishment. Is that enough punishment though? First of all, Plankton is pretty old, and as old as Mr. Krabs, but hitting on Mr. Krabs' mom? Ew. And second, he is literally cheating on his wife, not a message you will want to put in either a neutral or positive light, especially to kids. Plankton really deserves more than just a punch and a zapping for what he did in this episode. The plot gets a 2 out of 10. I really don't like this plot, and honestly, this is just one of a very few select episodes that I just wish were not made at all. Animation gets a 6 out of 10. I found the city destruction scene really great, along with the robots' antics and superimposing Navy ship guns onto Mrs. Krabs' muscles. That is some cool stuff right there. And of course, not to forget SpongeBob, the handsome waiter, just inserting himself into the conversation in the Krusty Krab. Unique characteristics gets 5 out of 10. This episode mixes the traditional trying to steal the formula plot with infatuation. And yeah, it's a great change from the typical idea, but because the new stuff of the infatuation isn't that great, I can't say it or anything else in this episode really stood out to me as being unique. Aside from the fact that Mrs. Krabs does actually show up in this episode, and we don't see her often. And we also get to see the Krusty Krab as a fancy dining establishment, once again after Squilliam returns. So all in all, I'll give Enemy-in-Law 13 out of 30. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 6, the motion picture, is much better in every aspect, but it doesn't mean it's perfect either. Given that it turned out to be the final numbered episode of the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy subseries, the expectation for the subseries would have been for it to go out with a bang, which really did not happen. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy still appeared in subsequent episodes, but it's always been strange to me why they decided specifically to stop the subseries so early in 2006. When I first found out about this episode, I thought it was a tie-in with the 2005 SpongeBob video game, Lights, Camera, Pants. In some sense, it is, given that the rough plot of SpongeBob and Patrick producing a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy movie is essentially what happens in that game, or at least, SpongeBob helping to produce the movie. Nonetheless, the motivations here are different. Here, Drippy Brothers Studios is producing a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy movie using young, hunky actors, reasoning that the real Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy are too old for an action film, which I do kinda understand. Nonetheless, SpongeBob and Patrick set out to enlist Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, as well as major characters like Sandy, Squidward, and even Plankton, to produce an amateur version of the movie where Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy face off against Kelp Thing. Movie production continually hits obstacles, with Sandy being a little bit too trigger-happy with the explosives, Mermaid Man not being able to say his lines, Plankton unable to hold up a heavy mic, and most epically, is that even a word, epically? Patrick, putting the lens cover on the camera before rolling. How stupid can that even be? So when SpongeBob is on the verge of giving up, it is Mermaid Man who encourages SpongeBob to finish what he started, and they eventually get it ready for the premiere at the Krusty Krab. Even the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy fan club folks show up and say that the original movies with the actors was sold out. So that creates more questions than answers, though. You're telling me the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy fan club can't even get tickets to the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy movie in theaters? They've either got to expand the Reef Theater or build additional theaters in Bikini Bottom. All in all, the never give up theme of this episode is one that ties it all together very well, and plot-wise it gets a 8 out of 10. I have to admit that the fails in this episode were still either funny and entertaining or made me empathize with the characters, from Sandy's booms to Plankton wanting to play a part, initially as Man Ray, and even SpongeBob's subsequent breakdown, disgusting as it was, really provided more depth to the characters all in one memorable tale. Animation gets a 7 out of 10. Squidward's makeup on Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy made them look absurd, but it was so hilarious, not to mention the old school movie style used for the ending scene or the movie itself. The explosions, gotta love some epic explosions, guys, and the destruction of the filming site by Pearl and Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy who rolled down the cliffside. All of these scenes were absolutely awesome. Unique characteristics, 8 out of 10. I'm perhaps giving too much credit to the fact that this episode is the last one in the original Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy sub-series, but the whole movie idea behind this episode made so much sense, and I just wish that they tied this episode a little bit more to the video game, although I definitely can think of reasons against doing so, such as to avoid unnecessary duplication, given that this episode is only 11 minutes long. But nonetheless, overall, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 6, the motion picture, gets 23 out of 30 from me. So that's my review of these two episodes. Comment box below what you guys thought of these two episodes. I would love to hear your opinions. That's all for this video. Make sure to subscribe and like, and till the next one, keep right here on with SpongeBob 101. I'll see you guys in the next SpongeBob video. Bye!